Welcome back to the YouTube channel here for our youth group. We've been talking about recently the story of King David and kind of like what his reign was like as king in comparison to what King Saul's reign was. And as we've seen, obviously they've both made mistakes because they're not perfect. But the difference has been that King David has actually gone through and asked for forgiveness for various things. And so, because of that, he's actually been able to remain as king, as God had asked him to be the next king. And it's been so far, David has made mistakes, but he's asked for forgiveness, and that's what's actually allowed him to remain as king. And where we ended up last was he was finally moving back to Jerusalem after one of his sons had kind of tried to establish his own kingship, and David had left. His son has died, and now he has moved back. And so what we're talking about today is really just it doesn't really have any particular lesson per se, but it's kind of a fun story because it's kind of different in the line of King David here. But anyway, so it's just a fun story today.
Yeah, we really don't have the time in order to be able to talk about everything that David did. I think we're touching some of the highlights about how, as a king, he made good decisions and he made not great decisions. He made bad decisions in his life. But just to give you a little taste about how one of his aspects of being king is he was a great general. And as a general, he elected men to be, also head of his army. And between all of these men, what happens is that in the time of David, he had great warriors that followed him and that rose above the ranks of the other ones. And this group was called the 30, the Great 30. Who had many different victories that they were able to accomplish just with their own talents. And, throughout the Bible, if you go through the books of Samuel, if you go through the books of the Kings, you will see what they were able to do in amazing feats. And a lot of times it's like, just one person against hundreds of different Philistines. They came and he was victorious. But as you go through the story, what happens interesting is that these 30 people are compared to the three great ones, the ones who were better than them. And every time, like this person, he was great and awesome, but he wasn't one of the three. And that is because in one specific battle, King David was frustrated, and he was against this army that had taken over the area of where a well was. And so then he says to his people, man, I really wish I would be able to have a drink from this well. And it was just this frustration, like, how is it that they still have that stronghold? Well, it turns out that these three great men of David went in the middle of this camp, fought everyone they had to fight, got the water from the well, and escaped there, and were able to bring it to David. And David was so shocked and amazed of what is the loyalty, the faithfulness, and the courage of these people that he wasn't even able to drink the water, because it's like, I just said this out of frustrations without even like thinking much, and you actually made this wish of mine happen. So what ends up happening is that David just pours it on the ground and saying like, this is like essentially worth the blood of my men. How can I drink this? And it is amazing to see how, you can sometimes be part of the 30 and great at where you are in your capacities, but there's always that extra mile. There's always to be able to be more loyal, courageous, honest, and great people that will serve their king or serve their role in the way that even God wants us to do that.
And so it kind of brings us quite a bit to the close of King David's life. We have one more story to talk about on Saturday of King David. But that kind of wraps up like the main points of his time as king. And obviously, it's very different from the time of King Saul because King Saul had a very short reign because of his unfaithfulness to God. And so we'll close that out on Saturday and kind of talk about the end of David's life a little bit, and one more very interesting story. But like Marcus said, there's always room for us to be able to grow in what we're doing. There's always room for us to go the extra mile and prove our courage and our loyalty. And I think that's what God would have us to do in our world. And so we will see you tonight. And if we don't see you tonight, we'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, see ya.